Just a note about the gospel. The gospel closes with Jesus telling the apostles that even if someone rises from the dead, they aren't going to believe. This was to prepare the apostles for what would happen after his resurrection. The automatic assumption was the people who did not believe in Jesus would certainly all be converted once he rose from the dead. That didn't happen. So he's really preparing them for that. I'd like to look at the middle reading, though. The middle reading is Paul's letter to Timothy. When Paul went into an area, he would preach, and the people who were converted, he'd sort of set up a community, put certain people in charge to do one thing or another, and then go on to another area. And one of the people he set up was Timothy. Another one was Titus. And those two people became very important in the ministry of Paul. And whenever there was trouble going on in any community, Paul would normally send one of them as someone to work pastorally in the community till the problems were resolved. Paul writes this letter, this section of this particular letter. He writes to Timothy to encourage him to keep going. One of the things we find in human life is that it's easy to become discouraged the longer something takes. The shorter something is, we can normally get through it. But the length of time something takes, the longer it is, the better chance we'll get discouraged. They say when you go for a doctorate, the whole idea is whether your enthusiasm can outlast your getting, discouraged. And when your discouragement passes your enthusiasm, that's when your education ends. Wherever it is, that's it. Okay? But the whole idea is that hopefully you'll survive the discouragement. The real problem is that in human life, the things that are most important that we do take the longest. And for that reason, they are the things that are most subject to discouragement, the things that are most important in our lives. And when you talk about Timothy, if we're talking about ministering, of course his work in communities and everything will stop. But you realize what Paul's talking to him about is actually being holy. He says, you want to be forgiving, you want to be caring, Paul goes about these things. And the problem in all of our lives, that never ends. Would to God you could reach a certain point in your life, you'd be canonized, then you didn't have to work on it the rest of your life. But that isn't the way it goes. In human life, the idea of truly becoming a Christian is an ongoing process that never ends. St. Augustine, after his great conversion, a lot of people who knew him beforehand would come up and say, "We heard you became a Christian." And Augustine's response always was, "I'm becoming a Christian." It is an ongoing work that really never ends. And the gospel reminds us those are the works most prone to discouragement. You and I, in the life of holiness, in the life of trying to be a good person, the life of being a Christian, one of the major things we need to guard against is discouragement.